Hey guys, Hayden here again from Alarm System Store, and today we're going to be talking about a diagnostic tool for the DSC Neo that some of you may have seen, but most people don't really know how it works, and it is called the event buffer. So essentially, any DSC system has an event buffer, and it is going to keep a list of events that happen on the system. Now, each system over the past couple generations have kept a different number, but the one we're working with is the DSC Neo. So essentially, this panel can hold up to 500 events. So while you're looking at this, essentially what it is used for is exactly that, just to check events that happen on the system. Now, events can be anything from a trouble condition to a arm, disarm, alarm, showing what zone, was triggered the alarm, so on and so forth. So I'm going to run through our event buffer here. I've had a few armings and disarmings, a couple alarms in the past recently, so they're going to show up. Right before this, I also caused a battery trouble just by disconnecting our battery cable here so that I could show that trouble in the event buffer as well. So this is particularly useful for if you happen to run into a scenario where like your keypad beeps and you hear it, but whenever you go to check it, it doesn't look like anything's wrong. Sometimes this can happen because a trouble, such as a low battery, system battery trouble, is showing up, but the system's managing to charge it quick enough that the trouble just shows up momentarily, so you don't actually catch the trouble itself. So if you happen to hear your keypad beeping randomly and you can't really pin down what is the cause, or if you just want to go back and look at events that have happened on the system, such as who armed and disarmed it at certain times, that is what this event buffer is for. So I'm going to move the camera over here, zoom in on the keypad here so you guys can see what I'm talking about, and we'll run through how to use it and what it can be used for. Alright, so I'm going to do my best to explain this because it is a little confusing, but essentially to get into the event buffer, this is the easy part. You just hit *6, go into your master user menu, type in your master code. First thing you'll see is press star for event buffer. If you hit star there, this is where it gets confusing. You'll see a screen that you won't see anywhere else on the Neo except for in this event buffer, but there's a 4-digit number up here on the left, partition number, or in some cases, system area, a time and a date. So this number up here at the top left is the number of the event. If we scroll to the right, it'll show 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth. So as we are scrolling right, you'll see the time decreasing, or going back in time, because each event is numbered by the way that it happened. So number 0000 is the most recent event that happened on the system. 0001 is the second most recent event, so on and so forth. If you need to, as you saw there, you can scroll left and it starts at 500 or 499. That is the last event that was saved before it started getting overwritten. Now the second thing you're going to see is up here at the top right, partition. Now this will say, whatever partition that the event happened on. Essentially it's telling me all this happened on partition 1, and I know that because I only have one partition on my system. If you do have multiple partitions, it will tell you the partition that it happened on. One other thing that you will see there is system area. Let me find one there, system area. And what that means is that it was a system-wide event. So that is usually only troubles. There's a couple other events that'll show up as system area, but that just means that the system as a whole had a trouble. So down here is the time that it happened and the date that it happened. Those are pretty obvious. So if we need to search for a specific time or a specific date that you're looking for an event on, use this layer. You can just scroll through there and pick out the time and date that you think a particular event happened. Now, to be able to see the event, you do have to hit star. When you hit star, it will show whatever the event was that happened at 10:46 on 11/17. Now, this is where it can be a little difficult to maneuver around this menu because you don't use the typical star and pound to kind of back in and out of the menu. You essentially are working with two layers right here. So you have the event layer, which is kind of the bottom layer, Then if you hit star, you have the time and date, which is the top layer. So anytime you hit star, you're just flopping between those two layers. So if you need to search by event, you can just hit star, and you can scroll this way as well. So essentially what I'm looking to show you guys is that battery trouble that I mentioned that I caused. So this is actually the system BAT ABS REST. And what that actually stands for is System Battery Absent Reset. Now, this is when the trouble was cleared. It's at 10:46 a.m. on 11/17. The battery trouble that I caused was cleared. Now, to see when that happened, we need to scroll to the right to go back in time more to find the actual trouble condition when it was caused. So you'll see here, System Battery Absent Trouble. So at 10:43 a.m., that was when the event started, and then at 10:46, the trouble ended. So this is where it can be really handy for those random keypad beeps like I was talking about. Essentially, if you have I don't want to say rogue trouble because it's not rogue, it's the system clearing something that happens just before you happen to catch it. So especially in the case of a low battery, you will see that often. As batteries go bad, they essentially slowly lose their ability to hold power. So you might get a trouble beep here and there because the system battery is low enough that it caused the trouble, but then the system charges it up enough that it thinks it's okay, so the trouble clears, and then you won't see anything on the keypad when you go to look. So that is why this event buffer is so handy. You can come in here, you can see when the trouble started, you can see when the trouble ended, or if something else happened along those lines. So there's a couple other things I want to show you in here, and that is going to be, we can do this one real quick. This is installer lead out. And if we scroll to right before that, installer lead in. Now this is telling you that somebody entered and exited programming. So if we hit star at 10:44, I went into programming, and then installer lead out, I left programming also at 10:44. So whatever I did quick, but essentially I went into programming and then I backed out. So the ones that I really want to show you though are the armings, disarmings, and then alarm conditions. So let me get to where it was real quick. Give me 1 second. Okay, so this right here, it says closing by user 1. Now this is more akin to actual signals that come out of your panel. They use terms like opening and closing rather than arming and disarming. They mean the exact same thing though. A closing means the system was armed, an opening means the system was disarmed. It'll tell you the user that did it, and if you need to check the time, that's on that top layer as well. But if we scroll left, which is progressing in time, you'll see that the system was armed in stay mode. So you can check who armed it, what mode it was armed in, and if we keep going, you'll see that a zone was bypassed. Now, if you've seen my most recent video, the stay/away arming video, basically anytime you arm in stay mode, you are doing so to bypass certain sensors. So this is where you will actually get a third layer of event buffer menu. You can see press star to view. If we hit star, it'll show zone 2, because zone 2 was the bypassed zone when the system armed in stay mode. So if we hit star again, it goes back to that top layer. One more time, goes to the actual event layer. If we scroll left from there, you can see opening by user 1. That means I disarmed the system right after that. A zone bypass or zone unbypass. So anytime you disarm a system after a zone has been bypassed, it is an actual event that the system goes through and unbypasses any zones that were bypassed previously. So you can see what zones were unbypassed. It was just zone 2 for us. We'll go back to the events, scroll left again, and I armed it again right after that, but at this time I armed it in away mode. And when I did so, we're not going to see the zone bypass because in away mode, the system arms every sensor. But the next thing that I did was I put the system into alarm. I triggered that motion sensor, which allowed the system to go into alarm. And if you hit star there, start a view, it'll tell you what zone actually triggered the alarm. So that happened at 10:36. And then if we scroll left, recent closings, that is telling you who armed the system anytime an alarm condition occurred. So you'll only see this recent closing if the system was in alarm and then it was disarmed. It's just kind of double checking that you know user 1 was the person that closed the system or armed the system. Scroll left again, zone alarm, rest or reset. So anytime you have an alarm and you disarm it, it is an event where the system resets whatever zone was in alarm. So if you hit star, you can see zone 2. The system actually had to go in and basically say, okay, zone 2 is good now because we disarmed the panel. You can see that all happened around 10:36. I was pretty quick on it. I was just doing that video. But essentially, if we keep scrolling left from there, alarm canceled. Now, you'll see this anytime you disarm a panel before the actual dialer delay on the system completes. So any system is going to have a delay before a signal goes out during an alarm. Ours is set to 30 seconds, as most are. If you disarm within that 30 seconds, you will see an alarm canceled. That's just telling you that the alarm was canceled, meaning you disarmed within that initial 30 seconds. So the signal that it does send out is an alarm canceled signal, which will still prompt a call from a central station if you have them, but it basically tells them that somebody was there to disarm the system right away. If we keep scrolling, you'll see opening by user 1. Now this is when the event finally took hold that I disarmed the system. So all this happened within that 1 minute. So you'll get multiple events on a single minute. A lot of this stuff happens boom, 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 like immediately, but it does look slow when you're looking at this event buffer because a lot of stuff's going on with that system. But essentially this is where it finally took hold that I opened or disarmed the system. If we keep scrolling left from there, it will tell you open after alarm. And that essentially means that the system was opened or disarmed after an alarm had occurred. And it'll tell you the user that did the opening or the disarming. After that, I went into programming again, changed some things, and then I armed the system. It armed in away mode, opening by user 1, opened it again. Now, one thing you'll see occasionally in here is special closing, and that is generally whenever you use a function key to arm the system. So instead of typing in a code, you can just hit one of these function keys to start the countdown to arm the system. And that shows up as a special closing because when you use a function key, the system doesn't know who did the arming. But you can see that it went into away mode and then it was disarmed by user 1 because you have to plug a code in to disarm the system. So that's just kind of a short rundown of events that you can see on here. There's all kinds of stuff that'll show up. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing just because there is a lot about this menu. Essentially, like I said, you just got to remember that there's 2 layers. You have the time and the date menu, or time and date layer, which is the event number, where it happened, the time, and then the date. And then the second layer is the actual event itself. And that way, just as you're going through, just hit star to scroll back and forth between those 2 layers so that you can see the event and then you can see the time and date that it happened. So, like I said, the best thing to use this for is trouble conditions that may be occurring, or if you have, random beeps on your keypad and you just want to see what's going on at the time that it's beeping. If you catch it, you hear it, and you know what time it happened, go into your event buffer, check the time and date, check the event that happened at that time. A lot of times, like I was saying, it's a low battery that is essentially a battery going bad, but it's not quite all the way bad yet, and it's showing a low battery trouble, but then the system's charging it enough to clear it right away. So it's only momentary, but it is enough to prompt you to check the system because you hear those random beeps. But like I said, all this other stuff's in here as well, so if you just want to go in, play with the event buffer, you can't hurt anything in here. Basically, no matter what buttons you press, you're not going to essentially delete any of the events or anything like that. So if you just kind of want to get familiar with what your system events look like, when you arm and you disarm, things like that, feel free to do so. Like I said, it's in the *6 menu. Use your master code, hit star on event buffer. So hopefully that was informative, and you guys can use this as a extra diagnostic or troubleshooting tool in the future. And if you have any more troubleshooting issues, check out our how-to videos on alarmsystemstore.com. We have them right on our website under the resources tab, or you can go to our YouTube channel, Alarm System Store on YouTube. If you are on YouTube, if you wouldn't mind, leave a like and subscribe. That way you can catch our future troubleshooting videos, and I will catch you guys on the next one.